السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أحبتي في الله، اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضاه وأعطي لكل عبد منا من الخير ما نواه وصلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد ومن والاه. I'm sure you have heard about Ahl al-Hadith wa Ahl al-Ra'i, and there are two different schools, and most of the school of thought going back to these two schools, and how these schools was formed and developed. That's something people they have to understand, and doesn't mean that we're in the school of Hadith. That means they are not making ijtihad, but the amount of ijtihad not that much compared where talking about the school of thought where they have a lot of ijtihad in there, where that's how they named this one school of Hadith. باعتبار الغالب, that considering the majority of fatwa, this goes back to Hadith, and the other one, باعتبار الغالب as well. But what led to those schools to develop? First of all, the nature of people and the nature of that society and the simplicity of the life in Mecca and Medina and its surrounding, and the complex of the life, in Iraq and its surrounding. Because as we know, the center of the Madras al-Hadith that was in Medina and around cities, and the center of the Madras al-Ra'i Baghdad and surrounding cities. So, if you think of it, that everything's based on the texts that are available, which Quran and Sunnah. When you have limited texts, and there are something arise, and something came up, you have to give, fatwa, and you make your ijtihad, you make your analogical reasoning if there is no, text that you can depend on. They said, here you go, there's a text. So you get the point? Now looking at the texts, in Mecca and Medina, the texts are available compared with that areas, because most of the scholars of Sahaba and the writers of Hadith, they remain on those areas. Few of them travel outside that surrounding. Okay, so the knowledge more about Hadith available in that area. So whenever somebody will come with something, I said, you know what? Oh, there's a Hadith in there. There's no need for them to make up their mind and make an ijtihad. And also, that area was kind of a pure area. There's no much different polarities or different, political standing or agenda, where people are still pure and innocent. There's no much lies. And there's no need even for people to lie or even to fabricate a hadith, in that area. Well, in other areas like Iraq, this is a fitna in there. There are different groups, there, different ideologies. So there are fabricated hadith. And people, they want to support their agenda. They make, those hadith and others. So what that lead? That lead that, when the scholars, they will take the hadith, they were in the area of Mecca and Medina, they will take it in very simple way with no much restriction. However, in Iraq and surrounding areas, they will have to make sure that's authentic hadith, and because of there's kind of lies in there, they make the condition harder. They really, before accepting any narrations, they are applying multiple filters. And that will make the available authentic resources or hadiths are less and less. In the beginning, they are not that much compared with that area, and then now less and less. Okay. So that's other reason. Also, it was no much need to make fatwa because there is no much things that are new required fatwa in Mecca and Medina. But because of those cities in Iraq, and in Baghdad and all of that Iraq area, they are surrounding other civilization, surrounding other cities. They have many things that are new, that was not there at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So that required fatwa, required opinion. So now think of it, when there's less resources and there are more cases, then that required to use your ideas and coming with your opinions, of course, based on the sources that you have, based on the rules that you made, but you are not much dependent on the hadith, as compare with the school of Mecca and Medina. As I said, the resources are much greater than the resources in the other areas. So if you notice the circumstances, the nature of people, the nature of society, the development of both societies, and the difference in that, that's what led to having these two different schools of thought. So, that generally speaking, but it doesn't mean that everyone comes from Iraq that's part of the madrasa to al-Ra'i. No. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he came from Iraq, but he's one of the great scholars of madrasa to al-Hadith. Imam Malik, he never went to any other city except Medina and Mecca when he went for Hajj and Umrah. But some of his teachers, like Rabi'atul Ra'i, he's part of the other school, where the school from Iraq, some of his teachers. But he's a scholar of Madrasatul Hadith. There are some scholars, they combine, between both, Madrasatul Ra'i and Hadith, like Imam Shafi'i, for example, he studied here and there. And somebody will say, like a Madrasatul Ra'i, like Imam Abu Hanifa. He's considered like a Madrasatul Ra'i. And some people, they will think Madrasatul Ra'i, that means he's not dependent on the Hadith. That's not right at all. The scholars later, gathered the Hadiths that Imam Abu Hanifa built his madhab on it, and they gathered over 100,000 Hadiths. And some scholars later on, even they collect some of the Hadith that's called Musnad Abi Hanifa. They gather those Hadiths. So do not think that he's not considered Hadith, but as I mentioned, the resources already less, and the conditions are tough compared with others. So the Hadith that they will depend on it, that's in fact authentic, where the question about of authenticity less compared with other hadith in other areas, because already they apply tough criteria and acceptance those hadith. I hope that will be clear. So this is like some background about these schools of hadith and al-Ra'i. Of course, we don't mean the word Ra'i that you apply what you think from your opinion and neglecting the hadith and resources. That's wrong. We're not talking about Ra'i, that's where you make just your mind without going back to the source. This is not acceptable at all. So I hope that will give some insight about this school of thought, and inshallah we'll build on that later on. Now I'll open the question for you. Open the floor for your questions. Bismillah. تفضلوا. اللي عنده سؤال بالعربي أو بالإنجليزي كما تحبوا. Yes, brother. Yes. He will pass the mic.
Oh, assalamu alaikum. My name is. Is it just me?
It's not working? Oh,
okay.
maybe the other mic, the one on the corner. Brother. On the corner. Yes, go ahead, brother. Yes, Brother Omar. Um, so there are type of dealing, as we mentioned. You see, like the school of Iraq and and Mecca and Medina. Even now and nowadays, there are type of contract, type of dealing that's kind of was not that exist, or there's no much similar examples on those times. So when it comes like these new things, a new contract or a new way of life, the scholars they will look at it from different angles. So if the brother asking about pension, is that right? He's asking about the retirement plan where everybody is working, like nowadays being recommended, and sometimes some of the companies required to do that. So sometimes voluntarily you open this, especially those they have they are under categories called self-employees. They voluntarily they open that, and others, the employees most of the time being part of their contract, they have to, even sometimes without even asking them, like do you want to participate or not? And some of those they have actually fixed, even way how they invest, on those money. So now, is it any issue about that? Nothing at all. You don't have to worry about this. It's a kind of saving, and a kind of investment. Just make sure that if you have the control, that the companies already invested, that's invested in halal. Nowadays, alhamdulillah, the concept of halal, the concept of halal, a lot of people and a lot of companies are aware of it. So you could find, sometimes that investors, they invest in halal way. Or sometimes you could ask about the ethical, investment, where that's something as well, most of the time that's equivalent to halal, So these two ways, if you have the control for which one to choose, you should choose the companies that, the main of the work is something match with the rules of Sharia. Now, in terms of zakah, as that saving money, that any money in that yours have access to it, then you have to pay zakah for that money. So if you have a control for it and you have a complete ownership, then you have to pay, zakah for that. When you don't have a complete ownership, that's a different story. So that we ask a question first. So do you have access to that? You can withdraw that money in any time. If yes, then you apply the zakah for the money that you can withdraw. What I meant from that, because sometimes if you withdraw the money before the time that being distributed or given back to you, they might apply tax or even be high bracket tax on that money. So after deduct all the expenses, all the government taxes, what's remain amount, that's yours. Then you pay zakah for it. Some scholars, they said there's no zakah at this time, just only when you receive, you pay one time zakah. But I would say again, that's rule apply for the retirement money or any other money. If you have access to it, then you have the complete ownership for that money. Then you pay zakah for that after you deduct all the expenses and taxes. Yes, brother. Okay, slowly, like step by step, you know. So let's answer the first question. Um, as we know, there are 4 conditions in order to apply the zakah, and zakah will be mandatory on you. بلوغ النصاب وحضور الحول والملك التام والخلو من الدين. So there are 4 conditions that you have to have the minimum amount that being saved for you for a year, and you have to have the complete ownership for that, and you deduct any debt from that amount. So let's assume that you have a money, but you have not received it yet. It's yours. Let's say the shipment coming through the ocean, or a money was promised to give it, or a check but we have not cashed it yet. It's not the time yet. It's your money, but you don't have the complete ownership for that. There is no zakah for that money unless you receive it. Okay? So you don't have to count it at the time you're giving the zakah, but when you receive it, so if you already paid the zakah, then you deduct the amount of zakah the time that you receive it. So do not wait for that money that for the next year. You know, for it counts from this year because you own it this year, but there's no zakah until it comes with you. So you will deduct the zakah at the time that you receive it. So this will apply for the question for the brother when he asked about the tax return. He's expecting good amount of money that will come to him, but it never came to him yet because he didn't apply yet the tax return. So do not just assume. No, do not go by that assumption. So there's no zakah for you until that will comes, in your account. Then at that time you deduct, the 2.5%. Yes, brother. I didn't get the question yet. Like, it was not that clear. So let's say you have a property, you mean, like, back home, and in that case, any money there is always to make tawkeel. You ask somebody on your behalf to give the zakah. That would be much easier for you, because now you are here, maybe you are not access to that money, and you don't even know how much to pay. You could assume how much. If you are here, you have money here, and you're able to pay zakah, you can assume how much there, and then you calculate zakah based on that. And then later on, you will see if there is differences. But it's better not to postpone it until you return, and you don't know when you return, like years later, that will be like delay for no reason for paying the zakah. If you have somebody, that would be the best option. That somebody you trust, he will take care of paying the zakah on your behalf. I'm not sure if that will answer you the part. Okay. Yes, brother. Alaikum salam. Okay. طيب طيب الشخص السائل هنا الاسم الكريم بشر. السيد بشر يسأل عن حكم الإسبال، وهو أن يكون الإزار واللباس أسفل من الكعبين. الإسبال تعتريه أحكام ثلاثة. قد يكون محرما إذا كان تكبرا، ولهذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا ينظر الله إلى من جر ثوبه خيلاء. وعليه يحمل قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: ما أسفل من الكعبين من الإزار في النار. وقد يكون مكروها إذا فعله الإنسان ليس بالكبر، ليس تكبرا، ولكنه مكروه عليه لترك سنة مع القدرة عليها. فمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على أحدهم فقال: يعني لماذا يعني تسبل إزارك؟ بمعنى هذا الكلام، نسيت اللفظ يعني بذاته. فقال: إني لا أفعله خيلاء. قال: أوليست لك في أسوة؟ فإذا مكروه إذا فعله لغير الخيلاء ولكنه قادر عليه. الأمر الثالث أنه لا شيء فيه إذا كان لعذر، ومن ذلك أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عندما جاء أبو بكر قال: إني أتعاهد إزاري فيتراخى مني. قال: ليس عليك، بمعنى ليس عليك حرج. وأيضا ابن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه مع اتباعه للسنة وحفاظه على السنة كان يسبل إزاره وكان يقول: إني حمش الساقين، يعني كان عنده عذر يغطي ساقيه، فكان قصيرا رقيق العظم، وكان يعني يسبل إزاره، فقال: إني حمش الساقين، يعني عنده عذر في ذلك. فلو كان الإنسان له عذر في ذلك فلا يفعله لا خيلاء ولا متشبها بالمختالين، وعنده عذر في ذلك فلا حرج عليه. Okay. So the brother asking about somebody dragging the cloth underneath the ankle. That's for men, not for women. For women, they're sunnah to drag their cloth. Okay. And now the sunnah became opposite. Subhanallah. So what's the rulings for that? There are three categories. One of them is haram. If somebody dragging his cloth underneath his ankle for pride, he's doing it because he's proud himself. He's thinking he's better than others. And by the way, that was the practice in Jahiliyyah, and even nowadays, it's still those people, they think they are elite, they are like special, that if you look at them, they drag in their clothes. They have tails, they dragging it. They have the way how they are doing it, with the pride. You still can see that in many examples. So if somebody doing it for that reason, then it's haram. Why? Because kibr and anything lead to it, it's haram. And the Prophet said, Allah will never look at the one who dragging his cloth out of kibr, out of khuyala. He's doing it for that reason. And there are other hadith that the Prophet said, anything from the izar, from your dress, that's underneath the ankle, that will be in hellfire. That hadith and the other hadith that comes together. This is called mutlaq, بس يقيده الحديث الآخر. يعني so there are sometimes a statement comes with no restriction or no exception, but when you bring it together, the statement together, you understand its meaning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in multiple verses talk about freeing slaves, but He didn't specify that has to be a believing one. He didn't has to be, that slave has to be a believer, has to be a Muslim. However, in one verse, he said, Raqaba Muslima. This is that, there's a Muslim one. So that one even mentioned one ayah that make restriction for all of other ones was not restricted. Okay? إذن تقيد الرقبة بأنها مسلمة باعتبار الآيات الأخرى. The other point, the other category, that it's makruh, undesirable. When the person is not doing it out of pride, out of kibr, however, he neglected sunnah while he can make it. And any time that you neglect sunnah that you can apply, it's makruh. Anytime that's a sunnah that you can practice and you don't for no reason, then it's makruh. So one time the Prophet saw a man dragging his cloth. He said, why not following me and practice my sunnah? He said, I'm not doing it out of kibr. But the Prophet said, is it right that you take me as an example? So the Prophet was not happy for him, even though he was not doing it out of khuyala. And the third category, it's fine. It's not haram, it's not makruh, it's permissible. When the person has excuses, valid excuse. And Abu Bakr Siddiq, how he was strict of applying the sunnah. But he told the Prophet, I was trying to tighten my izar, but it's get loose. I know sometimes it's hard. It's loosened, from me. So the Prophet, he said, do not worry, you are not doing it out of kibr. You do not worry about that. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, you know how he was strict of applying the sunnah, yes? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. But in the same time, people have seen him dragging his cloth. And he made a reason, he said, because I have that tiny legs, so he's covering, his legs. And he thought that is a valid reason to do so. And I will give you other evidence that to know that's not haram when you do it not out of kibr. I'll give you evidence. Wait, listen to it. Are you ready to listen to that evidence? Okay. One time the Prophet ﷺ dragged his cloth. And the Prophet ﷺ, he would never ever do something haram or makruh. When he went out to pray istisqa in one time, the narrator, he said, وَكَانَ يَجُرُّ ثَوْبَهُ, and he was dragging his cloth. Yes, you might say, he has excuse at the time, he's hiring Abu, whatever, but regardless, the Prophet, he will never do something haram or makruh. So if somebody has a valid reason for that, that will be fine, but which is count as valid reason? That's where the point. Most of the time, people didn't have a valid reason. So regardless that you are, not doing it out of kibr, out of, pride, you should try your best to apply, this sunnah. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, brother. Okay, yeah. Istikhara is something recommended. However, do not do it for everything. Some people, they do istikhara for everything. Even for something haram. Even for something the Shara is decided already. So we do istikhara. I have seen people, they do istikhara for every action. But the most important things that concern you should make istikhara. Not every matters that's, easy to decide or the Shara already decided for you. Okay? So that's one thing. And the Prophet ﷺ advised us to do istikhara. ما خاب من استخار وما ضل من استشار. You make istikhara and istishara. So you istikhara, that you basically you consult Allah. That's the meaning of it. And you consult the people of knowledge, others. So istikhara and istishara. So you going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking His guidance. And you go back to other people asking for their guidance as well. So you look at both, because that's how we required. Now, You can do istikhara anytime, However, the last third of the night is preferable because that's one of the best times for dua. But you could do istikhara anytime. And you can repeat the istikhara multiple times. For the same matter, you can repeat it. And you can ask other people that you trust and you love to make istikhara on your behalf. Like your mother, your brother. You said, can you make istikhara for me about this? You can do that. Nothing wrong with this. And when you do istikhara, what you're expecting? It might, the matter that you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that good or not, became very hard. There's kind of block where you cannot proceed. You know what? Then a sign of rejection. Or maybe became smoother, nicer, there's no issue. Then it's a sign of acceptance. That's one thing. Or there's kind of decision that became easier for you to decide by your heart. So in your heart, you are debating about this and that, but then after istikhara, you have only one way, one decision. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it solid for you and removed the other option away from you. So that's another way. And also, you could have a dream, that the interpretation of that dream, let's go with that way, not the other one. So it could be different ways. But regardless, it's a good practice that you go and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, as I said, do not just do it for everything. This should be for the things that are really important matters in your life that concern you, where you went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that Sharia never decided. If the Sharia already decided, there's no any other option to make istikhara. Okay? Yeah, so istikhara basically 2 rak'ah. 2 rak'ah and the dua after the salah. So even if you don't memorize it, you can read it. And basically you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if that matter and you name it is good for me, that Allah bring it close to me. If that matter and you name it, if that not good for me, Allah take it away from you. Okay? Inshallah. Abu Hanifa. It's not the point. Okay, there is one statement from one of the scholars of hadith. He said, لما كثر الكذب في الناس استعملنا لهم الحديث. لما كثر الكذب في الناس استعملنا لهم الحديث. ماذا يعني بذلك؟ يعني لما كانت الأمور والبيعة بسيطة بدون كذب، الإنسان لما يقول كلمة نأخذها يعني كأنها مسلمة بدون أن نناقش فيها. لكن لما كانت هناك شبهات وهناك كذب وهناك مشاكل أخرى هنا صار التدقيق أكثر. لم يكن العفوية هي الأساس الآن، لا، نفترض غير ذلك في الناس، فلهذا افترضوا غير ذلك، فلهذا ينظر هل سمعها أم لم يسمعها، هل نقل هذا عن هذا أم لا. إذن شددوا في الأخذ، ولما شددوا في الأخذ قلت الحديث التي يعني كانت مقبولة في ذلك. بمعنى آخر أنك تجد في باب الجرح والتعديل تجد بعض العلماء من يشدد في باب الجرح والتعديل، يشدد يعني لا يقبل الحديث عن أي شخص. تمام؟ لماذا؟ وهم معذور في ذلك، لأن البيئة التي هو فيها بيئة فيها مشاكل وقلاقل، فلهذا يشدد في مسألة قبول هذا الراوي من عدمه. وأما بيئات أخرى عاش فيها هؤلاء العلماء بيئة نظيفة يعني سليمة، ليس فيها الكذب كثير، ليس فيها المشاكل بشكل كبير، فلهذا كان التسهيل في مسألة الجرح والتعديل. إذن بيئة ذلك العالم أحيانا تفرض عليه أسلوبا معينا في قبول الأثر أو رده. So the brother asked, we're in the area, I'm not just specifying about Imam Abu Hanifa, he's not a scholar considered as a scholar of hadith, but I'm speaking about the scholars of hadith at the time of Imam Abu Hanifa or at the time in Iraq and surrounding area. The scholars at that time, they are very strict of accepting who's the authentic and acceptable to narrate hadith from him or is not. Because there are a lot of flies there, a lot of trials, a lot of problems, a lot of agenda. So they were very careful. They're not accepting any riwayah. While in Mecca and Medina, it's still pure society. So there's no much question mark, So it's easy for them to accept, those narrations in comparison with the other. All of them, they have their own criteria. But I'm just saying, when they pass a judgment, they are very careful, very strict, when it comes to the area of corruption. And that's something normal, yes? Do we still have time before Salah? Yeah, okay. نعم. جزاك الله خيرا. هذه رواية تروى لك ليس عن الإمام أبو حنيفة. So the scholars, they didn't accept somebody might cheat an animal and he will pretend that he's feeding the animal and nothing in his hand. Calling the animal, pretend that there's something in the hand and it's apparently nothing in there. So they refuse to take the hadith from somebody cheating the animal, let alone, others. So because they say, if he has the concept of cheating and lying, he might not guarantee he will cheat or lie even in other matters. SubhanAllah. And that time, the scholars are very careful, and they did a great job. May Allah, grant the best for all of them. They left for us, a great treasure. It's kenz, the effort of the scholars, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that in their record of hasanat. Jazakallah khairan. Yes, brother. White lie. Lie is lie. There's no white lie in others. But here, we have one rule, they call irtikabu akhaf ad-dararain. That can be. That's when there are two harms, you commit the least worst. Is that right? Okay. So sometimes, if you have situations, where there are two brothers having issues and you want to reconcile and bring them together. So in this case, for example, you can go to other person and say, you know what, wallahi, this person loves you and says things nice about you. And then you go to other one and bring them together. Even if they discover later that you were lies, that's fine. They bring you together. As mentioned, Sayyidah Aisha said, ليس الكذب الذي ينمي بين الناس فيقول خيرا. It's not a lie that's bringing people together, because if the lies, that's main purpose to cheat people and to convey something against the reality in order to trick others. But here the reason was not for that. Yes, you might convey something not the reality, which that maybe what's similar to what you did to lies, but the result of that's something different. So the brothers, he would say, three of them, he mentioned the hadith of three. It's not, that's as an example. Yes, it's an example of that. But I'm just saying, some people, they went far. The hadith that mentioned about musalaha, so they changed it. They said al-kadhibu fil masalih yajuz. No, al-kadhibu fil musalaha, nisl masalih. So people, they start using that everywhere. Yes. So to reconcile between people, that's a different story. And even now, some people say you can not to bring happiness to the heart of your wife, but when away, you say that's fine, but you say you want, oh, you are the most beautiful woman. Well, it's fine in your eyes, yes. That because it's subjective, yes. So you are not lying in this, because that's something beautiful. So it's regardless, that's anything to bring happiness to her heart. That's something it's good. But do not lie, it's something obvious. Yeah. I'm not here just to mention all of these reasons, but I'm just saying, like now you will say the truth, or because of saying the truth, somebody will be harmed. Let's say there's an oppressor ruler that he was after a good person, and you know where that person hide. You say, what? Oh, I'm a truthful person. I'll tell you where he is. You could find him. And then after he will be killed, say, oh, that because of me? Because of you, yes. So to prevent what is worse harm, yes, you could lie in this. And actually, if sometimes it's must to lie. When the Prophet ﷺ gave permission to Nu'aym, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he said, Al-harbu khud'ah. This is when the time of the war that you could, lie because, that's your enemies, and you want to protect the group of the believers. So you have to do that, and there's no harm in this. And as I said, it might in one part fall under lies, but the reasons which is considered, that's where make it kind of different category. Now, looking at Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, they said he made the white lies 3 times. There's no white lies he made. فَقَالَ إِنِّي سَلِيمٌ. He said, فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ فَقَالَ بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْطِقُونَ. So they said these lies, and they mentioned the Sunnah when he said that that's my sister. When they asked him about Sarah, when they went together to Egypt, they said it's my sister, and then he said my wife. But it's all of that. There is a way to interpret it. When you look at it, there is something called tawriyah. Tawriyah. You will say something that you mean something that different from what the person understood. Okay? That's called the tawriyah. And the Prophet ﷺ used that in different ways, on different occasions. So it's better to use that way than to make obvious lies, even though you want to avoid which is worse. So again, inshallah, we'll stop at this point. The time for adhan, and inshallah we'll continue next week. And you can send your question in advance if you want through the email imam@londonmosque.ca, and also in my phone number if you want to text me 519-564-9191, and you can call if you have a private question as well. And also you can use the Facebook and you send message through that. I have access to it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant the best for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all our sins, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the best of understanding. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. آمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك.